Well, ciao, welcome.
Ciao,
Facciamo
thank you.
nell'italiano.
Yeah, capiranno tutti.
We're so cosmopolitan. We could just do this podcast in so
Yeah,
many languages.
amazing.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. So I was really keen to chat to you to kind of get more information about Geyser and what it does and how it does it. So I guess I just wanted to kick off really first. Can you just introduce yourself? Like, who are you and what do you do?
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me. Humbled to be here. So, yeah, I'm Mick. I am a Bitcoiner. I have worked usually in user research, user UI, UX design for 4+ years. And the fintech space, I worked 1 year in crypto, unfortunately, but it was a good experience nonetheless. And yeah, my background, I studied anthropology and economics in university, which gave me a
Oh,
kind of, very diverse kind of background to see the world in different ways and see that, no single academic pursuit or frame will tell you everything you need to know, the truth. It's all very, very much depends. The frame depends, and you may get different perspectives, but truth is always something you have to fight for and discovering, and is very nuanced. But yeah, anyway, so I'm, really started off, as a Bitcoiner in 2017 and went down the rabbit hole, and super just amazed at this community. From the very beginning, I was saying like either these guys are completely nuts, or they've discovered something very, very deep and important. And the more I went down the rabbit hole, the Bitcoin standard was very important for me to kind of bring it back to the economics and the anthropology. I think the Bitcoin
mm,
standard, actually, I like to say, does better anthropology than any Bitcoin anthropology book I've ever read, in the sense that anthropology today concerns itself with human beings and often looks at this sort of minute world of people's belief systems, but it completely rejects any attempt at making sense of the world as it is, and trying to get to some truth. Like, truth is all relativized. Everything is relativized. Nothing is, objectively true. And with the Bitcoin standard, you come to this understanding that money is this thing that is like has been evolutionarily tested through time. And even though you may not be aware of why gold is gold, and we attributed such value, history has proved that the scarcer resources are the tools that are then used to store value through space and time. And so yeah, just I went down the rabbit hole, and went down the lightning rabbit hole around 2 years ago, and just found out how brilliant and amazing this rabbit hole is, and kind of realized that there was all the tooling there. There were all the infrastructure was being built,
mm.
but that very, very few applications could actually existed that could actually make it truly usable. I found it to be a bit like if you were in the early days of the internet and you
Yeah.
had TCP/IP, you had the basic protocol, and you could do everything. You could send an email, you could send messages if you knew how to do that technically. But if if you didn't know how to use, in our case, like BTC Pay Server or a Bitcoin wallet, you wouldn't know where to start using it, right? So that was sort of one of my first insights that made me think, okay, people need to actually like build the application layer of Bitcoin. We have we have the protocol level stuff. We have even a lot of infrastructure companies. We have wallets. We have nodes as a service like Voltage. We have all these different tools, but now we just need platforms. And so my initial idea was, I'm seeing all this activity on Bitcoin, on Lightning. I'm seeing all these people building Lightning applications. All these creators that want to be involved in Bitcoin, that want to, do all sorts of things. And so the initial thought was like, we just need a simple platform where people can tell their story and raise money. It's guys, there's a very, very simple idea. It's not, it's not rocket science. It's just the idea that instead of crowdfunding through tips on Twitter, for one day, and then the thread gets lost forever. You need a place for that project, for that idea, a place where you can also discover relevant ideas, other similar ideas, a place where you can tell your story more in depth through like blogs and entries where you can update on the status of the project. So it's really trying to create tooling around this use case, which is making it possible for anyone to easily create a project and launch their campaigns. And so that's what we started with. And we have been growing a lot, and I think our use case has been proven. And what we've done in the last, we launched Geyser a year ago with one simple pilot, and it was really a small proof of concept. Then we launched 7 months ago the open 8 months ago the open platform, and but it was still clunky. You still had to run a node. So only 6 months ago, actually, have we opened the floodgates. And we did that by making it super simple for anyone to create a project. And how we did that is by just using a Lightning address. So you don't need to run a node. You just need a Lightning wallet with a Lightning address. And we essentially stream sats directly to your wallet. So we're non-custodial, even the way that we do it is non-custodial. And the point is that, by lowering the cost of an effort of creating a project, we've just seen this plethora of people that are passionate about Bitcoin, that are launching their ideas, that are pursuing their interests in Bitcoin, and are trying to add value. And we're seeing a lot of like developers, open source developers building their tools, but the majority of projects are more non-technically focused. So like things like educators that are, out there producing content, movies, right, that are producing books, that are even going out on the street and just spreading sats around. All these different
Is that Joe Hall?
There's Joe, but there's many more. There's a lot of people around, in Africa and South America that are just passionate about, we call that orange pilling, or there's not a tag for that. I think it's actually, I can't remember what it's called, to be honest. But yeah, so it's been pretty cool to just be able to support this kind of this use case, this group of users that aren't usually like as supported. And look,
I was going to say that kind of fills a gap, doesn't it? Because if you're not raising funding through VCs, then there's that kind of gap between, right, that space where there's no service that does that. Right. So I guess Geyser fits that, right?
Right. And we've seen, and it's good, like Bitcoin is a very technically, like you have to be very technically competent to be in here. But having worked in the sort of Ethereum ecosystem, I've recognized that a lot of the culture is also created around people that are creative, that are maybe not as technically competent, and it's very, very different. And I'm not a fan of how the culture is being built there. I think with Bitcoin, you were starting to see, like there has been for many years, but even lately, it's been increasing the number of artists, the number of creative people that are creating culture around Bitcoin. And these are people that understand the nuances of Bitcoin, like why Bitcoin is important, that understand the culture of Bitcoin maximalism, why also that's important. And so really trying to support this new group of creatives, educators, but also developers that are wanting to build things on Bitcoin, and allowing them to easily get found, to easily get funded in whatever, on chain, on Lightning, on URL, and then soon Zaps as well. And and really start from that. That was the foundation. And then on top of that, we built rewards. So rewards are a bit like a store, like you have your own store on Geyser. And right now it is still very much, a custodial platform, but we're looking to decentralize more and more as we go, and maybe we can get into that at some point.
Yeah, definitely. Can you just walk through, pretend I'm a normie. I'm not that technical, but more of a normie than I am. Can you walk through describing, because you've thrown a few terms in there, like running a node and zaps and all of that kind of stuff. Can you describe for a normie with the experience, I guess, that they have currently of using different UIs to engage with creators, and what that actually means in terms of the, I guess, the Lightning Network and Geyser specifically as to how it works? Like what is a Lightning node, and why did somebody have to run one? And I guess, how did you solve that next step to remove that?
So first of all, really good point. So running a node is a critical part of Bitcoin, and why Bitcoin is the decentralized money that we call decentralized, and what really differentiates Bitcoin from other blockchains. So if you think about the number of nodes that are, nodes are essentially running the entire history of Bitcoin transactions, and the entire chain is, I think at the moment, is actually not very heavy, in the sense of there's only so many transactions that are happening, and I believe it can be stored in a hard drive around 300 to 400 megabytes. So even with a 1 terabyte memory and a simple computer called a Raspberry Pi, you can run a node, essentially run the entire script of the Bitcoin blockchain, and that will allow you to retain sovereignty over that. That is basically a voting device. The miners in Bitcoin are what are almost verifying the payments, verifying all the transactions. But the node is what votes, basically, is like your voting system for essentially deciding which consensus you are running, which Bitcoin consensus you're running. It gets a little bit technical, but this is so important, because it's like with it you can decide, like, that Bitcoin is not going to change. There's no, even if you're running some of these custodial wallets, you're trusting them on all these different levels. And even at the level of like, which version of Bitcoin are you using? Because and the node runner could be essentially saying, okay, we're going to fork Bitcoin and then use this other chain. And then how do you know that you have the true Bitcoin? Well, running a node is how you take custody over the, decide that which Bitcoin version you're running, right? Now that does, require, it's actually not very expensive. So I recommend everyone giving it a try. It takes only like $100 to buy a Raspberry Pi and get set up with some of these really cool node running software that exists out there. Like I recommend Umbrel. I think Umbrel's a really good one. And you have Start9, I think, is another good one. So plenty of really good options just to get started, understand why self-sovereignty is super important. We can also run it on Voltage. Voltage is a node on the cloud that you can run really, really easily. And and honestly, running a node is one of the things that helped me click, like, why Bitcoin is so important, right? So when it comes to other chains like Ethereum, the nodes start basically getting really heavy. Like it starts becoming almost like very, very difficult to run your node, because it's just such a massive amount of data. And the reason for that is that in their trade-off, they decided, okay, we'll make our own cryptocurrencies a lot faster to use, right? So they said Bitcoin blocks happen every around 10 minutes, right? And so it takes 10 minutes to fully verify each transaction. And you could say, oh, why not make it every minute or every second or every millisecond, right? Well, if you do that, you increase the number of blocks, right? And you increase the amount of memory space required to keep all these transactions. And that's where, the trade-off is like, you're sacrificing, you're increasing usability and speed instead of focusing on the security of the network, the fact that anyone can easily store all the history. Because then if you have millions and millions of of terabytes of data, like who's going to be able to tell, right? You're going to have to rely more and more and more on centralized companies to tell you what the truth is. Instead, the truth is in your home. And now in Bitcoin, there's something like 20,000 individual nodes, full nodes, but I think hundreds of thousands when you consider all the nodes. So it's incredibly resilient as a system. Like it's probably the most it's the most reproduced digital document that exists in the world. Like maybe the Bible is still the
I was just gonna say the same comparison.
Right?
It's like the digital Bible.
It really is. It really is. And it's a sort of single point of truth that we can all rely on. And even if there's a nuclear war, there will be, places in the world where that document is stored safely, right? So yeah, that's kind of the basis of why running a node is super important and why it's critical that people learn about it. But then there is a lot of friction, right? So running a node is still a little bit expensive for most people, and so we decided to just increase that access. Like the way that we see it is that there is
just one question though. Initially, when you set Geyser up, why was running a node necessary? Like, what was it in that process that meant that you needed one in order to accept payments? I don't know if that's too technical, but
no, so there's two key reasons. One of the reasons is that because we didn't have an alternative solution that would not require us to become a custodian, and being a custodian, us of the money, would be a problem from a regulatory standpoint. We would have to pay millions of dollars in to get regulatory clarity, and we just don't have the money. Money transmitter license and all that kind of stuff. And then secondly, we also didn't want to be a custodian because we could censor, and we don't want to censor. And so allowing you to create a non-custodial wallet means that Geyser is really just an interface. We're just this platform that connects you to the relevant person, and we just see the payments. We don't even touch them. So up until that point, even like Geyser was entirely free as a platform. You can just create a project super easily using your node, but still actually not super easily for most people. So you run your node and you own the funds, and we're just this interface. Also we actually launched a week after the whole Canadian trucker convoy happened, right? So that was another okay, whatever we do, we have to remain non-custodial. Like custody is of the essence that it remains in the hands of the user. And what that means is that you really truly own your funds by running your node instead of relying on us as a third party to hold those money.
Why could you not have just had a Lightning wallet that people fund you on? What would be the difference? Right.
So that's what we did after, right?
Okay.
Right. So the challenge there is more technical. So if you're using a Lightning wallet, there's still you would be using a LNURL protocol to accept the payment. But as an interface, it would be impossible for us to know that the payment actually happened. So we can show that URL, but we don't know that the URL has been paid. So that was a problem that existed and still exists today somewhat. Zaps were able to solve that in a sort of way that works, but it's still not resilient as a system. Like Zaps can still be faked. Like you can say that you're paying 21 million Bitcoin to someone when you're not haven't actually done that. Because you have to rely on this Noster relay to send the correct information. And so we have to know that's that the payment has actually happened, right? And so we figured out this way to do it so that it's a bit technical, but basically we're routing the payment. So the way that it works is that you just use your Lightning address to create a project on Geyser. So the Lightning address is this very, very cool thing. It's this email-like identifier. It looks like an email. It could be, Krista@walletofsatoshi.com, right? And it's a Lightning address that you create that is created from currently mostly custodial Lightning wallets, like I think Wallet of Satoshi, GetAlbi, a BitNob. There's a plethora of Lightning wallets that offer this Lightning address. And Lightning address is like email, but for sending Satoshis, right? The Bitcoin on Lightning. Currently, it's mostly custodial, but we're going to start seeing, I think, non-custodial wallets adopting Lightning addresses as well. And the cool thing about it is that you can just plug it into Geyser as if it was an email, and then start receiving sats, your Bitcoin, directly into your Lightning wallet. And that's really powerful. Like, that's incredible, right? It's like, it's a insanely great user experience, because you don't have to input any weird numbers, or you just input your Lightning address, and then we forward all the Satoshis passing through our node over to your wallet, so that we know that the payment has happened. And we apply a small 2% fee, which is nothing compared to 9% charged by Kickstarter, for example.
Is that how much Kickstarter charges? Really? Wow.
I think overall it's something between 8 and 9%. Yeah, it's pretty high. Huh. So we charge a 2% also to prevent spam, because people could be creating fake transactions and stuff like that. But we do that in a very, very smart non-custodial way as well. So we could never truly take the funds, because we actually, what we do is that we send you the money to the creator of the project before we receive it from the sender. So there's no way that we could actually ever hold that money. It's this sort of smart contract that we're using that allows us to run payments through our node, but while being non-custodial. So it's a very, very powerful tool, and just tries to make the user experience really, amazing. Trying to really focus on making, as a creator, to just plug in your Lightning address from your Lightning wallet and just get going with your project. You don't have to worry about running a node. And we're just conscious that there's a plethora of people out there that just want to get started in Bitcoin, maybe don't have enough patience to run their node, or are not too technical. And we shouldn't limit these people. Bitcoin is a sort of, this gradient of highly competent technical people that are, holding the torch of self-custody and liberty, really, I think, freedom. And then people that are still getting started, that understand Bitcoin, but, are still learning. And we shouldn't, keep these people away. We should still give them the tools. So, and just to also,
but that's also how you scale, isn't it? I mean, it's right. None of us use services that are difficult to use. I'm not a mechanic, but I still drive a car.
Right.
So
exactly.
You need the expectation that everybody should be technically competent in Bitcoin is just not reasonable. So I think, you're right. There has to be that interface that makes it super easy. And then that's how it just becomes the norm, and we sort of shift to that Bitcoin standard.
Right. I mean, ideally, we still, because I'm still not super happy about having people get their money in all these custodial wallets, because it's still, you're still trusting these parties, but it is, the first step, and the first step to get started in Bitcoin. And when you have a significant amount, when you have $100, $1,000 on your wallet, and you're like, okay, I should put this somewhere else, right? But yeah, it's kind of, it makes a lot of sense, actually. So, and another way that I see it is that Bitcoin is this incredible thing that has all these different properties, right? It has these use cases, right? So if you think about it, right? So first of all, Bitcoin is borderless, right? It's borderless. It doesn't follow any jurisdiction. It's just, you can use it anywhere around the world, and with no problem. So that's incredibly powerful. If you compare it to trying to send money, using your bank account from United States to Nigeria, you're going to be charged a lot of money, but it's even going to be difficult to do. You might not even be able to send money.
It's not even in the United States to Nigeria. Believe me, I've moved money from moving around so much, lots of different jurisdictions. And I look at that and I think anyone that thinks that Bitcoin isn't going to become the default payment network is mad, because the existing system is so expensive, so inefficient. It's just...
Yeah, so that's the second point, right? So it's really expensive, right? So Lightning makes payments almost free, basically, right? Speed, instant
Lightning.
payments, right? Lightning again. Then you have self-sovereignty, right? That's powerful. That's another really powerful thing. No one can take it away from you if you have your Bitcoin, in a hardware wallet in your head. No one can fuck with you. That's an incredibly powerful thing. You have permissionlessness. Like anyone can start building on Bitcoin. Like nobody, I had to go to no bureaucratic office asking if I could build on Bitcoin. I just fucking built on Bitcoin. You know, that's incredibly powerful. If you want to do something like that for payments on a fiat on-ramps, you need to like go through all sorts of KYC. You need to go to Stripe and do some sort of KYC or KYB. Just it's hell, right? It's difficult.
Yeah. It's expensive and it's time consuming, and then it just creates so many problems on an ongoing basis with things like that. I mean, I just found, I think for me as well, a real kind of not turning point, but it really brought home to me how important Bitcoin is from a sort of freedom perspective, is when PayPal censored that free speech organization in the UK. I can't remember what they were called now. I closed all my PayPal accounts, all my business PayPal accounts, all my personal PayPal accounts. And I was like, I'm never touching that service again. Because the mere fact that they would entertain shutting down a business that was operating illegally, but it was a free speech organization. I mean, I was just like, could you be any more nefarious if you tried to? I mean, it was just horrific.
Bizarre.
Yeah, it was horrific.
It's completely bizarre. But yeah, it's another, you know, the self custody and censorship resilience element is super important. So as you can see, we just nominated like 5 different properties, but there's many more. And I think another element of the permissionlessness element is actually, you know, very underrated, because it really means that anywhere on the world can build anything with no permission, right? If you're a guy, there's a meritocratic element in here that is so important. Anyone, if you've just got a computer anywhere in the world, if you've grown up poor, don't have any documentation, if you're living in freaking like Lesotho or whatever, you can build a Bitcoin application without asking anyone for permission, right?
Yeah, that you can build a Bitcoin business essentially without asking anyone for permission. Yeah.
You can build your business and ask for, you know, use Bitcoin as payment, and like it's incredibly powerful. Like what that means at a societal level, it means that we're all really the same. Like we're all equal. The rules apply to us all the same, right? And there's many more. So for our use case, you know, we think the self-sovereignty element is very important. So if you're running your node, you can use Geyser. But if you don't have a node and self-sovereignty isn't your problem, you should still be able to leverage these other properties of Bitcoin through the crowdfunding, you know, tool. So if you're just a musician, right, and you're not doing anything controversial, and you just want to raise money from around the world, right, you can still use Geyser using a Lightning address, and so you can still leverage 4 of these 5 powerful properties, or many more properties that Bitcoin enables. So yeah, you should think about Bitcoin really like that, like as this sort of Pandora's box of tools. And you don't have to use all of them, but like as long as you understand the power of one, you can build anything, right? And so with Geyser, our main kind of thesis is that there is a role for global crowdfunding, like global and censorship resistance, but especially global, because 95% of projects don't care too much about custody, and even then, our tool. Even Lightning addresses could down the road be non-custodial. But for example, there are so many people in Africa doing work, you know, around for Bitcoin, or even not around Bitcoin, that want to be able to crowdfund from where they are towards their projects. And right now, pretty much all the crowdfunding platforms out there only operate in 30 countries. So like if you think about what that means, right? Like, you know, what does it mean that so far Kickstarter and Indiegogo have really only operated in Europe and America? Like what does that mean? What would it mean to connect the world through value? Like that's something that we have still no idea about. We're still playing, we're still experimenting with. And
it's right like the internet on steroids in some ways. I mean, I think that was actually with the truckers was one of the issues, that these crowdfunding platforms, particularly GoFundMe. I mean, I know lots of people that don't use that platform anymore because of what happened with the seizure of the funds. And then obviously I think the other one got hacked. So, I mean, it just, it really does open up a whole different world. And the fact that you can so easily access creators and service providers globally. You don't even need to know who they are. You literally just have like a task that you want done, and somebody can pay you, and you don't even have to know where they are, like, or who they are. It's mad. It's really mad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of like you say, I don't think we can even envision at this point what that's going to make things look like.
Yeah, I mean, we're experimenting now, and like you said, this is like an internet 2.0, but instead of transferring just information, we're transferring value. So it's I think is that it's going to create just new economies, like economies of builders that we've never even envisioned before. It's really,
as an anthropologist, do you ever kind of sit there and think about this and try and imagine what might happen? So having studied kind of how societies interact and evolve, I guess, or how humans evolve, do you ever play that mind game and sort of sit there and imagine what might happen and try and predict, I guess?
Yeah, look, I don't know, for sure, always like constantly thinking about like what the hell is going on right now, right? I think, I mean, there's so many different ways that we can talk about this. Did you have anything specific in mind of how, in terms of like the future, in terms of like Bitcoin as a system, like what does a hyper Bitcoinized world look like, or like?
I guess, I mean, it's probably too broad a question, but it's interesting. So, for example, Jeff Booth has that comment that he made. I quote it really often. He actually tweeted it, but I'm going to misquote it now. But it was something like, if the current system is built on lies, i.e. money that's not sound, that's is a lie, I guess, essentially it's incorrect information, what emergent complex society would come from having a system built on truth? I've completely misquoted the quote, but it was something like that. Essentially what he was trying to say was, if the money is sound, imagine what society would look like when it's built on truth. But I've never really heard anyone kind of speculate what that might look like. I mean, we can imagine lots of things, like we can imagine, maybe less corruption, a separation of money and state. We can imagine very few wars, if any, because they just wouldn't be funded. People just wouldn't have an incentive to fight each other if it wasn't for the sort of special interests that sit in there. I don't know. I guess maybe it's too broad a question, but I just wonder sometimes if you've ever speculated like where this trajectory might go.
Yeah, look, I think Jeff is one of the leading thinkers when it comes to this. I love this book, The Price of Tomorrow. Really recommend everyone to read it. What I really like take away from that is the fact that technology is and maybe just to explain the thesis a little bit of the book, that technology is deflationary, right? Technology drives prices of things down. Like the smartphones today are probably 10 to 20 times cheaper what they were 10 years ago, and better. Like technology and the market, which is a type of technology, markets, economics technology, drives prices down. So that's the first thesis. The second thesis is that technology is going everywhere. Technology is not just software in a computer. Technology is your car that you're driving, like it could be an electric car, but it could even be an Uber, like the motor and transit system could be technified. It could be like, your home, like smart homes. It could be just the way that homes are produced, just driving home prices down. But it could also be like money. And the way that he frames it is that Bitcoin is the technology of money, is the properties of money, of technology, the deflationary properties of technology that are seeping into the realm of money. And money has been leaking, like Michael Saylor says, it's like this, it's like this melting iceberg, right? It's this melting ice cube that leaks, like, like we used to do back in the days, like George Washington died because he was, being, I forget what it's called, when they sort of take blood out of your system because they think that
leached, I think.
Leaching.
Right. Yeah.
Because he had, but he actually died to death because of lack of blood, right? So the system as it is today is similar in the sense that they keep on, leaching the economy with inflation, because inflation is deemed to be actually a good thing, and there's this natural inflation concept of 2% that what we should be striving to do, and it's leeching the system of 2% of value every single year when it goes well. The truth is, it's actually been 5 to 10% in Western countries, and up to
it's more than that.
Yeah, if you consider real estate, it's probably like 15%. I think Safidina Musa has some really good insights into that. But basically, technology is deflationary. Technology is seeping into everything. And the third thing is Bitcoin as money is that Bitcoin is the technology of money. And what it does is that it drives the price of things down, meaning its deflationary properties make life more bearable. And I think that's like the most powerful kind of thought like that I've come across in the last few years, just because it helps you understand that deflation is actually is so important in terms of making life like good. Like it's actually, it will make life better because it will drive prices of things down relative to Bitcoin.
So do you kind of envision that as the sort of human struggle will become less so? It will become less of an economic struggle.
That's right. I think that's a key insight, is the fact that Bitcoin can make life like bearable. Like it will not be the struggle that it is today. I think the struggle that a lot of people sense and experience today is because of inflation. It's this sort of like in the movie in the Matrix. It's like it's this thing that you know exists, but you can smell it, but you can't see it. You can't really, there's something wrong, but you don't know what it is. Well, it's a bit abstract. There's many things that are wrong in the world, don't get me wrong, but inflation is this growing leeching that happens, that just sucks energy out, life force out of the system, out of human beings.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is it punishes value creators, and that system of money printing rewards the people that are nearest the money printer. So essentially the fraudsters, the counterfeiters get rewarded, and the people that are actually building and creating value get punished. It's true. Yeah, I guess what it would do is it would remove the economic struggle from the human condition. And I suppose the next step from that is then what would people be doing in terms of actualization or self-fulfillment or whatever it might be, when they're not worrying about
I think everyone's still gonna be trying to stack sats. Like that's not gonna go away. Like you're still gonna want to stack sats. You're still gonna want to work, and as a Bitcoiner that you have plenty of Bitcoin, you're still gonna want to work and produce value. I think it removes that element of stress that people have,
and maybe also of fear. I mean, one thing I found really interesting working in the US was how much people's jobs, for example, were tied down, or how tied they were rather to their jobs, because their health insurance was linked to the job that they had, and because health insurance wasn't just freely available, at the point of need, it just became a big consideration where people would plan their careers around where they would work because of the health benefits. And I remember looking at that and thinking, how is it that the US is a hub of entrepreneurship when that's a consideration that people have to have when they're thinking about how to organize their life? It struck me as very strange. I mean, it is. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, inflation is slavery. I mean, you're basically working without consent to, prop somebody up who's next to a money printer. I mean, in its purest terms, it is. I think it's a bit like you said with the Matrix, though, isn't it? It's a bit like being a fish in water. It's so ubiquitous and you've always lived with it that you don't see it until you kind of step out of that Matrix and go, hang on a minute, like, does this actually make sense?
Right.
It's you should are you creative from a writing perspective? Because I think it'd be awesome if somebody wrote like a fictional book, but imagining what the world's going to look like and that journey that and like almost like a sci-fi, but then we can look back in 50 years and see if it came true.
I know there are some stories. I think there's one, it's called 21. It's being I forget. I can look more into it, but there's 21 stories, I think it's called. It's about 21 stories about what a hyper Bitcoinized world might look like. There's also a really good movie. Have you seen the 10 minutes movie called Generational Wealth?
No.
Oh, I'll need to send you a link. It's super amazing by Tomer Storlight and director Hodel.
Oh,
About
wait, I did see one of his. I think I
right.
did. Yes, I have
Okay.
seen that one. It's on
He's made
YouTube,
a
isn't
few.
it?
Yeah, yeah. He's made
Yes.
another one called Bitcoin is Beautiful as well, which is really good. But yeah, we need more. We need more creatives and creators and think about like what will that look like and how try to start painting a picture of that.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
building a platform. I want people to use it and
Build it and they will come. So
right.
talk to me a little bit about the people that are actually on the platform. Like, who was your first crowdfunder, and what kind of what sort of a array of crowdfunders do you have now?
Right. So right now we have more than 340 projects on Geyser. It's crazy to think how many there are. We started off, the first project was this guy in Nigeria who wanted to do a Bitcoin workshop and or a conference, and he didn't, to test out this concept. We like, this is perfect. Let's see if people are willing to fund him. And so this was a year ago, and we launched his campaign, and he raised more than $2,000 in just a week from the Bitcoin community. For us, that was a mind-blowing moment because it was like, holy shit. So Bitcoin isn't just about hodling. It's like, no, like we were right in testing that thesis. And our thesis was Bitcoiners are willing to give away their sats if it's for something that brings value to them and to the network. And we saw that. We had more than, I think, 150 different people funding in just over a week and a half, $2,000. And so that's when we kind of started, okay, let's take this more seriously. We started building it. And then we started opening it up, one project every week. And then in October last year, we opened that up for anyone. And ever since, we've seen, I think the majority of projects have to do in one way or another with education. So maybe you are doing a small meetup, or maybe you are, want to write a book. So it's like in the intersection between education and creative pursuits. But overall, it's people that have a particular passion or skill, and they're passionate about Bitcoin, and they just bring those two things together. It's mind blowing. Like, right. So we have, for example, Tatum Turnup. Like, he does Bitcoin. Like, he started on Geyser as just a silly idea he threw on our application form. And this is a brilliant idea. Let's get it up there. And he's just like this, creative guy, this comedian type person that wanted to do something related to like interviewing Bitcoiner. He felt that the Bitcoin space was too much about technical and price and stuff, and he just wanted to bring the human perspective in. And so he now invites prominent Bitcoiners to have chats, and he has his own little side gig.
That's right. It's called Between Two ASICs, isn't it? Which is kind of a take on that. Who's the other comedian that does that, Between Two Ferns?
George Falozakis. I can never spell it.
Something like that. Yeah. I came across Tatum because I did Anthony Pompliano's crypto course, and he was one of the alum from there. So he was in a cohort before me, but he used to every now and then turn up to some of the sessions, and he was always just so funny. I was thinking, this guy's just so nuts. He's just got no like, what's the word? He's just like lacks any kind of embarrassment about anything. He'll say anything to anyone. He was just so funny. And I've watched a few of the ones that he's done. I mean, they're just hilarious. I was like, that was actually one thing I was thinking the other day, is we don't see that many comedians in this space. Right. And it's so ripe for it. I mean, I've interviewed a meme maker who's based in Canada, Bitcoin Becca. And I mean, her memes are just hilarious. They're outrageous. And but I thought, God, there's a lot of memeing, but there isn't like stand-up comedy. And I was like, where are all the stand-up comedians?
Right.
Like, there's so much to make fun of.
There's a massive gap in the market. So if you're funny, consider getting started, right?
Definitely.
But yeah, there's also like people that are doing a lot of movies and films, right? You have a lot of films on Geyser. Raising funds. Which
ones do you have then? Because I know that you've got Pierre Corbin's raising for his films on there. So Alana Mediavilla is doing Dirty Coin, the mining documentary. And then who else do you have in the film space?
Right. So very soon we're going to be actually releasing a feature that will allow you to look in more detail at these different categories.
My category. So, I was going to ask you that because I was playing around on the Geyser interface the other day, and I was like, how do I find a project without knowing the URL or the link? So
I know it's Yeah, so it's actually coming out today. This is we're gonna have a big announcement today. We weren't able to get it this interview, unfortunately, but we'll be able to see it soon. But yeah, we have quite a few, honestly. We have, good question. I honestly don't remember the exact names. There's quite a few though. I know
Fine,
there's,
I
for
put you on the
example,
spot. Sorry.
no. I mean, there's a like Pleb Music. Max. He actually is one on Geyser grant for producing videos around Costa Rica about Bitcoin.
Nice.
You have the Great Reset. You actually do have the Generational Wealth is on there as well.
Wow.
Between Two ASICs, it's not really quite a movie, but like it's a show.
Yeah.
Trust documentary is a very, very good one by it's a really, really good one by John by good. I recommend you. I'll pass soon. There's educators like people that are going around the world, around meetups, doing education, doing workshop about what is Bitcoin. You have
what are the kind of terms and conditions?
Massive crowdfund the last few months ago.
Did they crowdfund? Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that they were on Geyser. Wow. Huh. What are the kind of terms and conditions? So if somebody, I was going to say, sorry, if somebody fundraises, what are the kind of T's and C's for them then? Do they just tell people this is what we're planning on doing, this is what you're funding? And what expectation do the funders have? Do they receive updates? Do they get some kind of, I don't know, like privileged access to the premiere? I don't know what it might be, but what's the general kind of construct for it, of the interaction, I guess, between fundee and funder?
That's a really good question. So right now it's as you would call it, take it all. So you get all the funds. There's no conditionality. So that's for the donation side of things. When it comes to the rewards, you can purchase a specific reward, right? A bit like it's really like a store. It's really like a store. So for example, this is what CryptoCloaks did, is that he wanted to buy this really big printer, and to do that he sold random things he had. Like he had a newspaper from El Salvador from the Bitcoin day. He had actually pre-sales of what he would print with his new printer. So we really trying to crowdfund to achieve this one goal of buying this mega printer. And so it really could be anything. It could be a perk. Actually, people are selling Noster badges on Geyser. Like there's all sorts of things. You could sell ordinals, inscriptions on Geyser. It's really just like an interface, and you can purchase things and sell things. And in that sense, the condition is that you do send across that reward once it's been purchased. But something that we are going to be working on next actually is the concept of all or nothing. So the idea that you have a goal. If you reach that goal within the goal in Satoshis, if you reach a goal within that established time period, you take the funds. If you don't reach a goal, the funds go back to the senders. So in this case, it actually creates a better incentive system for people to fund, because they know that they will be able to get it back if the project is not going to happen. But but instead the project will go and will increase the chances of it going actually succeeding if the goal is reached.
So they have like an amount that they say they want to fundraise, and if they manage to hit that amount to then do the project, then it goes ahead. Exactly. And if I say that makes sense. But
it's still be sending it. So it's not pledging. It's like you're actually sending the money, and we're working on different ways of enabling that in a way that's also non-custodial, so that if you're essentially it gets locked in, the funds get locked in, and then they can either go to the creator or go back to the funders. So that will create insane like alignment of incentives that will spark a lot more projects, I think, because it's less hard for the creator to manage if they're in that in between where the goal is not achieved.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is it? I know we talked about doing this, but are you able to screen share and just maybe show a demo of what it looks like for people? So if anyone's watching, they can see and just kind of verbally walk through it. Let me just give you share access. I think that this works on record. So hopefully on screen record, we should be able to see it.
Yeah. So yeah, this is what Geyser looks like. It's about to look like. So it's actually incomplete, but you can see that this is the discovery page on the landing page on Geyser. And what you can do here is you can select by different tags. So you can say, okay, we were talking about films. All right, let's look at what films are on Geyser, right? So actually,
nice.
there's quite a bit actually here, more than I had remembered. Bitcoin is less than 20 seconds, Dirty Coin, Trust.
Wow.
Between 26. So you can see all these different films, or you can be like, okay, what about films and culture? Which Bitcoin films and culture projects exist? And you can see here, you can see here culture. You've got all sorts of projects. You have, Project Yellow, Bitcoin meets Frankfurt. Like people.
Oh, is Project Yellow? That's the meme factory guy.
That's the meme factory guy. Yeah.
Right.
So they're selling a little plushie, which again, as you said, this is like a reward. So you can see, okay, you can
adopt a yellow
for $99. And so just to explain how this works, you can add a comment, and then you can, the way that it works, that you add your contact email, and you don't have to actually log in. So you can do this without even logging into Geyser. Notice I'm not logged in. But you do have to add your email if you fund with a reward so that the creator can get back in touch with you.
Right.
And then if you fund a project, you get a QR code. You can pay on chain. You can pay on Lightning. You can also
so you could literally just scan the QR code. You just do the action that you've done, scan the QR code, and then make the payment. Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's as simple as that. It's literally 3 clicks. It's like 1, 2, and then you just pay. Like, good luck trying to do that with credit card, right? It's the user experience is just so much better.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just copy that. Yeah.
The Lightning Network's just going to wipe out any other payment system. I don't see how it can't. I mean, the user experience is just so superior. It's just not even. It's not even comparable. That's incredible.
Yes. Yeah, so you can look at podcasts and see what podcasts are on Geyser. So here you can be like, okay, wow, so connect the world, values Bitcoineros, and you can be okay. What about podcasts in Africa? And you can see, okay, well, there's Fearless
Mullah.
But what about podcasts? Yeah, that's probably not the German version that I just said there. But yeah, projects in Africa. Look at that. Like there's quite a lot of different projects around education. These are all education programs in Africa.
Wow.
There's even like entrepreneurial projects that are trying to plans. There's also interesting initiatives. This will help you see 90% projects have to do with Bitcoin, but we're starting to see projects that are not just Bitcoin related, but are Bitcoin is becoming the medium rather than the message. Like you can create projects about anything, people can fund you.
Really?
Like, United States, what's going on in the United States? There's quite a lot of projects, right? So there's quite a lot of activity, and in the landing page we'll be able to show a little bit more detail. The top projects. So actually, this is still not the production, so you won't. This is not the live stuff, but you'll be able to see all the trending projects by category. So what are the top 3 projects when it comes to Bitcoin education or Bitcoin culture and Bitcoin community? You have a lot of different projects here. Let's look at that.
Can you just walk through as well, if you've got time, just some of the projects when you're talking about this kind of social media type aspect where people can give updates? What does that look like if you're kind of doing that as a user?
Right. So if you've created a project, so if you've funded a project, you can actually follow it. So this is still you can follow it.
So it's like a follow button. Okay.
Right. And then if you fund it, you follow it automatically. And then once that happens, you can, if you're logged in, you can get all updates about the project's status.
Okay.
So I'd have to log in. I can log in with Twitter, Lightning, soon you'll be able to log in with Nostr. And when you do that, you'll be able to essentially get all the updates of the projects directly. Here.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah, and we also have more plans to be more Nostr native as well. So we're still planning that out, but expect to be, to see all transactions that are happening on Geyser, to see them on Nostr, and vice versa. You can fund from Nostr. You can fund from Nostr already into Geyser. So let's look at a project here. For example, let's look at, for example, Bitcoin data, right? These are, women doing great work around Bitcoin education in Kenya, if I'm not mistaken. And what you see here is a Lightning address. So this is the Lightning address that allows us to see in Node that a payment has gone through, right? So you can send this on, you can use this on Nostr. If you're not familiar with Nostr, Nostr is like a Twitter protocol that allows you to get tipped really easily. And so if you use this as your tipping address, all the funds will be received on here. So really becomes Geyser becomes the aggregation of all the different activity that is happening. So so
essentially the project would go onto Nostr. They would post that address. People could use that address to send funds on Nostr. So essentially, as though it was like in the chat form on the social media platform or social media protocol, I should say. And then that will be aggregated on the Geyser fundraising screen.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So the only difference is that because Nostr zaps are not really verified, Geyser, verifies that the payment has actually been made and it's not like a scam payment. But yeah, exactly. That's the point. Like we aggregate all transactions coming from zaps, from Nostr, but even from podcasting 2.0. So if you have a podcast, if you're in a podcast now and you're tipping, you're boosting this podcast. If you use this Lightning address or actually the pub key of your node, and you use that in the splits, well, the funds would go here. So for example, Citadel Dispatch receives 79,000 contributions because they're tying in every single boost on Fountain or any other podcasting app, Fountain, Blue Wallet, is received obviously on Citadel Dispatch's node, but we listen to that. We know that the payment has happened. So we become this sort of aggregate source that allows you to see all the activity that is happening and also establish the leaderboard. So you can see here, okay, Brad Mills funded. This is actually a payment happened on Geyser because you can see he logged in and funded 1 million sats. But there's a lot of people that have been funding. Look at this person. This user funded 1,169 times, and you can click, and you can, in the future you could provide this user with rewards, right? With badges and things like that. And you can see here 3,000 contributions.
So they've done it on the Fountain app and they're just pinging to boost stuff when they're listening.
Right, exactly. So this is another property that we hadn't talked about Bitcoin, but the interoperability element of it is so powerful. And what it basically means is that payments happening on different platforms can be viewed, can be listened to by other platforms. The fact that it's this, common language that we can all speak, and we don't need to ask permission to view. So what that means is that we can, aggregate all this activity and help, projects get funded toward their ideas and their projects and their goals.
That's super interesting. I mean, the scope for this is immense. I can't even imagine how your brain must be on fire thinking about the possibility of what you can do, and then, trying to deal with the practicalities of actually just doing the hard work of building it while kind of ideating all of the crazy stuff that this could turn into. But yeah, it looks amazing. I love the tagging. I love that you guys have done that. That makes it so much easier. So much easier. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you can tag along and you can see relevant projects that you're interested in, right? Yeah,
Yeah. And so the
absolutely.
tagging is going to go by any, do you create the tags or can anyone create a tag? Who's doing the
Anyone
taxonomy?
can do the tags. Yeah.
Okay. And then you've got the
Uh,
location and so on.
yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can create a tag with whatever you want. We don't like proofread it or anything.
Gosh, you're really
We're trusting the
decentralizing this,
creators.
aren't you?
Well, we're just starting. It's still in our database, but there's definitely ways that we can integrate more with Noster. So each of these projects could be a Noster profile, really. And when that happens, the creators can actually hold the keys to the project, so that we can't even shut a project down because it just exists. On the protocol, the owner owns the keys. We just host the project, and yeah, that's sort of the key thing, the proposition that Bitcoin makes possible. So why not use it? Why not leverage the power of decentralization as much as it makes sense? And the key thing I think there is that all the content would then not just sit on Geyser, it would sit on any other. It could sit on any crowdfunding platform out there as well. Like Geyser is just one interface among many, and the power of that is that you can get funded from anywhere. So you're more successful on Geyser because you're not just on Geyser. You're not just in the siloed platform. You exist, out there. People can fund you from any Nostr client. Yeah, so really excited about that possibility. So as you said, my head is a little bit on fire just because there are a lot of possibilities, but at the end of the day, what you need to do is you need to solve a problem, right? Like you can come up with all these crazy things, but are people going to use them? Are people going to care? Are people going to find value in that? That's what it's all about. It's about creating value to real users.
Yeah. I had one last question for you as well. Is this available on an app yet? Like, can one use it on one's phone, or is it just on the browser at the minute?
Yeah, it's just some browser. You can use it on your mobile. You can, you have a mobile view, so you can see it as if it was a mobile. Oh, there's something wrong here. Interesting.
Are you planning on making it available on mobile? Is that on the roadmap?
Well, it's available on mobile as
a browser, yeah.
As a browser, but not as an app. That's something that we can probably do at some point, but I think the ecosystem is going to change so much that we're not going to need to. And the reason for that is, at the end of the day, we are still dependent on users knowing what a Lightning address is, knowing what Lightning is. And so the way that I see it is, I think the ecosystem is going to move in such a way that we're going to see like a transformation of what the Everything app is. And I think you will start seeing this new, I call them sort of protocol wars. I think things like Nostr are in competition with other protocols out there, including /tags, including Fedimint, right? All these are different attempts at creating the seamless kind of decentralized system. And what you're going to start seeing is some platforms are going to become where you store your data, where you store your private keys, right? And we don't want to be custodying the private keys necessarily, but if you have one of these apps, right? It could be Damus, it could be, maybe it's a Lightning wallet, maybe Wallet of Satoshi becomes this Everything app. Well, Geyser could be an app inside that, right? So you just have to install the wallet, and Geyser is just a tool inside the wallet. Right. So we don't have to create an entire, because we still depend on users knowing what Lightning is and having a Lightning address. And so we might as well just become that micro app inside this app, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. Yeah, that really does. That's really fascinating. Wow, it's incredible what you've managed to build in just 1 year. It's kind of nuts, and I can't believe you've got over 300 projects on there now. It's really insane. So I guess just before we close out, I just wanted to say, can you tell people where they can find you? So your social media addresses, the URL, like everything else, where should they go to find Geyser?
Definitely. So we're always very open to chat. If you have any ideas, projects to launch, you can just go ahead. Open to discuss. But yeah, you can find me at Geyser.Fund on Twitter and Nostr, or at MetaMake14 on Twitter and Nostr, and also on Telegram, MetaMake14 as well. And yeah, email hello@Geyser.Fund.com. And yeah, you can just tag us anywhere, and we can get in touch.
Sorry, is it hello@Geyser.Fund.com, not hello@Geyser.Fund?
All right. So the email is hello@Geyser.Fund, but
okay.
the website is Geyser.Fund. So if you want to go to our platform, just go to Geyser.Fund.
Okay, so Geyser.Fund for the URL, hello@Geyser.Fund for the email, and then your MetaMick14 on Twitter and, sorry, did you say it was Telegram?
Twitter, Telegram, and Nostr you should be able to find me.
Okay, perfect. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much, Mick. This has been really helpful. It's really nice to kind of see where the platform is and where it's going. And when is the tag feature released? You said that's coming out today.
Today, yeah, it's coming. So when people listen to this, you should see it.
Okay, perfect. So by the time I get this out, then people can actually go. I'll put all the links there so they can see them. But thank you. This has been really, really cool. Thanks for your time.
It's been great. Thank you so much for the invite. And yeah, I really enjoyed that.